Have you ever had one of those Sunday nights where the room feels quiet, but your mind is not quiet at all? You are half watching something on your phone, half scrolling, half bracing yourself because Monday is coming back again. Then you start doing the math nobody likes. How many more weeks like this? How many more years until the calendar stops feeling like a boss you did not hire? My name is Max, and this is Max Invests. I am not here to sell you a fantasy or pretend this is effortless. I am here to tell you the truth about a timeline most people never see because they aim at the wrong milestone. If this topic hits close to home, drop a comment and subscribe to the channel. That helps us keep making plain English finance without the fluff and without the shame. I also want you to know what this video is not. It is not a promise that life gets easy next week. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme with a secret acronym. It is a way of thinking that rewards adults who can look at their numbers without flinching. If you are willing to be honest, you will see opportunities you have been missing. Now let me say the uncomfortable part out loud. Retiring in about 10 years is not reserved for tech executives, lottery tickets, or people who bought the right coin early. It is an engineered outcome. It becomes possible when you stop treating retirement like a birthday the government picks for you and start treating it like a number you can cross on purpose. But here is what almost nobody explains clearly. Most people do not miss their goal because their paycheck is too small. They miss it because they are building toward the wrong finish line. Lesson 1. The finish line is income, not a trophy balance. Traditional retirement advice often starts backward. It starts with a big, scary lump sum. Maybe $1 million, maybe two, maybe a number so huge it feels fictional. Then people ask how long it will take to reach that mountain of money at their current savings rate. The calculator returns an answer measured in decades, and their shoulders drop in the quietest way. They accept a story that freedom is for their 60s, not for their 40s, not for their 50s, not for any season that feels close enough to touch. The industry feeds this story with charts and commercials because fear sells products and products pay bills. You see the same images over and over, a smiling couple on a beach, a number with too many commas, and a voice that says, security is a faraway island. That story can be true for some people, but it is not the only math that exists. That framework sneaks in a flawed premise. It assumes the game is pure accumulation, like the only goal is piling dollars in a vault. The real goal is simpler and more practical. The real goal is replacing the income that currently requires your Monday through Friday. The real goal is building money that shows up even when you do not trade hours for it. That is the difference between looking rich on paper and actually buying your time back. So let us slow down and define the gap. There is a space between what you earn and what your life truly costs each month. Most people feel that space as stress, but it can also be leverage if you use it intentionally. You can engineer that gap to widen, then fill the gap with investments that pay you like a second job, except the second job does not need you at the office. Once you see the gap as the real project, retirement stops being a foggy age number. It becomes a monthly target you can name, a dollar amount you can track, and a countdown you can actually believe. That is what I call crossing an invisible threshold. Before you cross it, you are drifting. You are saving because you know you should, but you do not really know if you are on track. You are hoping the future works out because hope is easier than brutal clarity. After you cross it, you are building. You are executing a plan with milestones, like a construction project with a schedule. You are not begging time to be kind. You are giving time instructions. When people hear income replacement for the first time, they sometimes think it sounds smaller than a giant lump sum. But income replacement is how your bills actually get paid. Your rent does not ask for your net worth. Your groceries do not care about your trophy number. They ask for cash flow, month after month, and cash flow is the language of freedom you can feel. Lesson 2. Vague saving makes the finish line move away. Think about what happens in a typical financial life. Someone saves 10% because they heard that rule, maybe 15% if they are disciplined. The money grows, but slowly, quietly, in the background. An online calculator says they will be fine at 67, and because that outcome feels far away, it also feels unreal, like a rumor about your own life. So motivation erodes in the most human way. They make exceptions for a season. They tell themselves they will tighten up later. They upgrade the small comforts because the big goal is too abstract to defend. Meanwhile, the finish line does not come closer. It shimmers like a mirage because they never chose a target sharp enough to protect their behavior when life gets loud. Now imagine someone who does the opposite. They do not start with a random percentage. They start with a question that sounds boring, but it is the kind of boring that changes everything. How much passive income do I need each month to pay my real bills, not my fantasy life? Then they ask what portfolio size can produce that income at a sustainable withdrawal or yield assumption. Then they ask what monthly investment rate can build that portfolio on a 10-year horizon, assuming they protect the plan from lifestyle creep. Suddenly, retirement is not an age. It is a number with a clock attached. And once the clock is real, your choices start to have visible consequences. That is the invisible threshold in action. It is the moment your plan stops being a mood and starts being a measurement. Lesson 3. Indefinite mode versus defined mode. Let me explain the psychological shift because the math does not work if your mind is fighting you. Before you have a clear target, you are living in what I call indefinite mode. The future feels foggy, even if you are smart. You know you should save, but the reward feels distant and abstract. So you make decisions based on what feels okay today, because today is loud and tomorrow is blurry. Your mental bandwidth gets eaten by bills, unexpected expenses, social pressure to keep up, and the constant noise of being a responsible adult. Long-term planning exists in theory, but it does not always exist in your calendar. After you cross into defined mode, the whole game sharpens in a way that surprises people. You are not saving abstractly anymore. You are building toward a specific monthly income target. A purchase that used to feel harmless now comes with a visible cost. It might delay your finish line by 2 months or 6 months, depending on what it is. A raise that used to disappear into lifestyle inflation can become a timeline weapon if you redirect it into investments instead of upgrading every bill. Fear does not vanish because you are still human, but scarcity loses some of its grip because you can see progress moving in the right direction. You are not praying for luck anymore. You are watching the machine work. In indefinite mode, you can be responsible and still feel behind, because responsibility without measurement is just effort. You can max a retirement account and still feel confused because the account is not translated into a monthly income line. In defined mode, you translate the goal into something practical. You can look at a purchase and ask a better question. How many weeks of investing does this cost me? How many months does this add to the timeline? That is not miserly thinking if you choose it on purpose. That is clarity thinking, and clarity changes behavior fast. Now let me show you what this looks like in numbers because the math is simpler than the industry makes it sound. Lesson 4. Start with spending, then solve for capital. Let us say your monthly expenses are about $3,000. Not your dream life, not your flex life, your real life, with groceries and rent, insurance, the basics, the small leaks. To step away from a paycheck, you need passive income that covers that reliably. If you build a diversified portfolio that can produce around 5% a year in a sustainable way, using a mix of index funds and dividend-focused investments as examples, then the capital target is not a mystery. 5% of $720,000 is $36,000 a year, which is $3,000 a month. So $720,000 invested, with that yield assumption, matches the example expense number. Is that still a huge number? Yes, it is huge because life is expensive. But notice what it is not. It is not automatically $2 million just because someone on the internet said so. It is tied to your spending reality and the yield you can reasonably expect, which means you can adjust the inputs like an engineer. Be honest about what 5% means in real life. It does not mean smooth sailing every single year. Markets have bad years, boring years, scary headlines, and moments where your account looks like it is disagreeing with you. That is why people diversify and why personal finance still includes behavior, not only spreadsheets. Also remember inflation exists, so $3,000 today is not $3,000 forever. You can build a bigger target later, or you can keep lifestyle steady while income rises, which is one of the strongest levers in the whole game. Now here's where the 10-year timeline becomes real. Not as a guarantee, but as a possible outcome when you stack aggressive behavior with discipline. Imagine you start with $20,000 invested. You commit to $2,000 a month, which is aggressive and not easy, and might require real structural changes. Assume long-run average returns around 7%, with reinvesting along the way, because that is how compounding actually behaves in the real world. Some years will be higher and some years will be lower, and your real life will not move in a straight line. That is normal, and it is also why consistency matters more than hero months. You are not trying to time perfection. You are trying to stay in the game long enough for the math to become your friend. In a simple baseline model, you might land near that 720,000 target in roughly 16 years, not 10. So do not hear me say math is magic. Hear me say levers exist. If you increase contributions over time, say 10% a year as your income grows because you refuse to inflate your lifestyle with every raise, the timeline can shrink toward 13 years. If you start with $40,000 instead of 20 because you already built a foundation, you might be closer to 12 years. If you combine a higher savings rate, real contribution growth, and a ruthless focus, you can push the timeline toward a decade. 10 years is not a promise. 10 years is what happens when the plan stops being cute and starts being consistent. If your numbers are different, that is fine. Maybe your life costs $2,400 a month or $3,600 a month, or you have kids and the math is messier. The method still holds. You translate spending into required income, translate income into required capital, then translate capital into monthly contributions you can defend. This is where identity starts to change in a quiet way. You stop being someone who saves for someday and you become someone running a 10-year exit plan. Discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like engineering. Delayed gratification stops feeling like suffering and starts feeling like strategic allocation. You are not obsessed with money for ego. You are obsessed with compressing the timeline because the timeline is your life. So here's the filter question I want in your head. Does this choice move me closer to the finish line, or does it push the finish line away? If you want more breakdowns like this on Max Invests, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next video. We do the math slowly, and we tell the truth. Lesson 5. Structure beats coffee math. Most people look for leverage in tiny cuts because tiny cuts feel doable. The real leverage is usually hiding in big decisions you make once, then repeat monthly for years. Where you live, what you drive, how you define comfort in public, and what you call normal for someone at your income. Let us use housing as a clean example. Two people both earn $80,000 a year. One rents a nicer apartment for $2,500 a month because it feels appropriate for their income, and because the kitchen looks good in photos. The other chooses a smaller place for $1,700 a month and invests the $800 difference. Over 10 years, that difference is not pocket change. It is a stream of money that could have become investments, dividends, interest, optionality, breathing room. The first person paid a lot for housing and got a place to sleep. The second person paid less for housing and bought future income on purpose. $800 a month is $9,600 a year, and $9,600 a year for 10 years is a lot of money that never got a chance to compound. This is not about shame. This is about recognizing repeated monthly decisions are the hidden engine of your timeline. I am not saying you should live in misery. I am saying you should know the price tag. Now look at transportation with the same eyes. Someone finances a $50,000 car with a payment around $850 a month because the monthly payment fits the spreadsheet. Someone else buys a $25,000 reliable car and invests that $850 a month instead. One path ends with a depreciating object that looks shiny for a season. The other path ends with a pile of wealth that can pay you back later. Over a decade, that single choice can shift your retirement timeline by years, not by vibes, but by math. Add insurance, maintenance, and the way cars quietly drain cash, and the gap between the two paths can get even wider. This is not about driving a junk car forever. It is about knowing what you are trading away when you finance status on a 5-year note. This is why I keep saying engineered outcome. You are not hoping the universe is generous. You are stacking decisions that point the same direction. Lesson 6. Exit awareness changes how you work. Once you are a few years into a real plan, something subtle happens that people rarely talk about. Suppose your passive income can cover 30% of your monthly expenses by year 5. You are not financially independent yet, but you are not fully dependent either. I call that exit awareness. You start negotiating differently because you are not begging for mercy from a single paycheck. A low raise offer does not automatically feel like a verdict. A toxic boss does not automatically feel like a life sentence because you can see another income stream growing, month by month, in your accounts. A career pivot that pays less becomes a math problem, not a panic attack. Can my passive income cover the gap, and for how long, while I build skills or sanity? Even a job loss hits different emotionally because investments can still send you money while you reset your next move. Same storms, different boat. That composure matters more than people admit, because confidence changes what opportunities you even see. You might also notice something else at work. You stop making career decisions from pure panic, and you start making them from priorities. Maybe you want more time with family. Maybe you want a job with less travel. Maybe you want to build a business without betting the rent. Exit awareness does not mean you quit tomorrow. It means you are less trapped today. And trapped is a word people feel before they can explain it. Lesson 7. The most expensive mistake is resetting the clock. Now I need to be direct about sabotage because this is where smart people lose years. Imagine you are 5 years into the plan. Your portfolio is around $350,000. Your passive income is around $1,400 a month. You are not done, but you are not nowhere. Then you get a promotion, and you celebrate by leasing a luxury car for $1,000 a month. It feels earned because promotions feel like proof. But that $1,000 a month is not just a payment. It is a stream of capital that never got invested. It is opportunity cost with compound interest, which is a fancy way of saying you paid in future freedom. In the story I am walking you through, that kind of decision can delay independence by something like 2 years, depending on returns and your exact situation. 2 years of life is not a rounding error. This is why I keep saying upgrades have a time price. Money can be earned again. Time cannot be refunded. When you see the price tag clearly, you stop treating luxury like it is free just because the monthly payment fits. If you want a simple mental picture, think of every recurring expense as a little anchor. Some anchors keep you stable, like housing that fits your life. Some anchors drag you backward because they steal compounding from the only machine that can buy your time back. Lesson 8. Protect the plan like it is a contract with your future. So, can you really retire in 10 years? Yeah, but only if you engineer it on purpose. Calculate your real monthly expense target. Reverse engineer the capital that matches your yield assumptions. Choose a monthly investment plan that fits reality, not fantasy, and then defend the timeline. Defend it from lifestyle inflation. Defend it from impulsive upgrades. Defend it from the social pressure to look successful before you actually have freedom in your accounts. Invest aggressively enough to matter. Increase contributions as income grows, and do not let every raise melt into nicer bills. Build a diversified mix of index funds and income-producing assets you actually understand. Reinvest early, because early reinvestment is the accelerator. Keep expenses steady even when income rises, and let compounding do the heavy lifting without you constantly interrupting the machine. And notice the emotional loop once you start seeing progress. Your portfolio climbs from $100,000 to $200,000, then higher. Your passive income climbs from a few hundred a month to a few thousand a month over time. You stop hoping the plan works someday. You watch it work in real time. Confidence feeds discipline. Discipline feeds consistency. And consistency is what buys freedom without needing a miracle income or perfect luck. If you track net worth and passive income monthly, even loosely, you are training your brain to see reality. If you never look, the plan stays abstract, and abstract plans die in busy seasons, So keep it simple, keep it honest, and let the numbers remind you what you are building. Imagine a Tuesday morning about 10 years from now. No alarm, if you want that. You check your phone, not from anxiety, but from curiosity. You see around $3,100 hit your account, not from an employer, but from a portfolio you built month by month and protected from your own impulses along the way. Work is optional in that moment, not because you hate working, but because you engineered choice. That version of you is not grateful for the luxury car you almost bought or the apartment you rented to impress strangers. That version of you is grateful for the day you saw the invisible threshold and stopped saving with a vague wish and started building with a blueprint. This path is not flashy. It is not instant, but it is real for people who can do honest math, commit to a timeline, and refuse to let a moment of ego reset the clock you worked a decade to build. If you are watching this and you feel behind, use that feeling as fuel, not as proof you are cursed. The point is not where you started. The point is whether you start building on purpose today, with a target you can see and habits you can keep when life gets loud. If you learned something useful today, subscribe to Max Invests, leave a comment with your monthly expense number, round it if you want, and tell me your biggest takeaway. What is one upgrade you will stop pretending is free starting this week?